years now, and this is what she did when she came on, and now it has transitioned a bit to Amanda over the last 4 or 5 years, and we have taken on a more of a social media type of an approach, along with our physical presence. But as things evolve, it's a great time to take a look at things. One of the other factors weighing in right now is the consolidation of the agency, becoming part of DIFI. And the hard fact of the matter is that ATA staff does not belong to the ATA anymore. All of us have varying duties that are now part of a larger organization, and so the time that we once had to concentrate on ATA matters has now been factored by a percentage. We just have less time to do some of the outreach that we do, because when it comes to vehicle theft, because we take on a whole role with insurance and financial institutions now. So that has to be part of this conversation as well. There's also, it's a great time because just society is changing, and how I mentioned that we're doing social media now. That's certainly a way that people communicate that they didn't necessarily communicate in that way a decade ago. And we just want to make sure that we are kind of staying current with the times, and that we're not mired down in an old strategy that isn't paying dividends or no longer has value for us. So my intent today is for staff to not necessarily lead this discussion. We want to be there and answer any questions, fill in any gaps for the board, but we really want to hear what the subcommittee has to say. And as best we can, we want to listen, and we want to kind of limit our influence in the discussion to whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm hoping that maybe today we can talk about the Watch Your Car program, that we can talk about what we refer to as boothing. I'm not sure how widespread that term is, but it's basically when we set up a booth at a public event and then pass out literature and trinkets and then talk to people as they pass by. So we want to talk about that, possibly VIN etching, and then just social media. So those 4 kind of general categories, or anything else that the subcommittee wants to talk about, we're certainly all in. And as far as my expectations, whether we resolve anything today is really not up to me, and I have no expectation that we will. But if we do have a general consensus from the subcommittee on what we're doing and how we're doing it, then we can go away with this and be content. And if there's things that you say you want us to do, then we will certainly take those under consideration and figure out how to get them done. But I guess I would just say that if it doesn't get resolved today and it ends up going into another meeting, or it's just fine with me. So I really don't have any expectations about closure today. So Robert, thank you for the time to make those comments, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McGuffin. Based on Mr. McGuffin's comments, are there any questions or additions from the audience?
I did have a couple questions, and I apologize for being late. I was stuck on a call. Thank you, Anne, for reminding me that it did start. So I had to cut my call short, though, for the reminder. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You had mentioned the Watch Your Car boothing. What were the other 2 items that you had mentioned? I'm sorry.
VIN etching. We do VIN etching events, and then social media was the other one.
What is the VIN etching?
VIN etching is a, you're obviously familiar what VINs are, the VINs that are attached to a car by the factory. You can also, through the use of little devices that can acid etch a VIN into window glass in particular. It can also have some other applications in metal with tailgates and other components that are often stolen. And it allows for those stolen pieces, whether it be you know, like so say a VIN is removed from a car or something like that, and then it makes an easy identification if the window glass is etched. It's a deterrent, but it also could allow law enforcement to actually make that tailgate or another large component belong originally to a certain car that might have been chopped or as far as dismantled in some forms.
And so what about VIN etching as far as I'm trying to understand the program itself, like what are you trying to, are you having a seminar on this? I mean, what exactly happens with this?
Well, one of the things that we do is we have law enforcement agencies that come to the board and they ask for grants to purchase these devices. And Ann and Amanda, jump in anytime you want and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like those devices are somewhere around $1,100 or $1,200 a piece. So the agency come to us and ask for that device. It's usually awarded by the board, and then they hold like public VIN etching events at their organization. So you would get people to come into, like the El Mirage Police Department is a very active member, or Casa Grande, and you will see a line sometimes, of 5 or 6 vehicles at any given time coming through to get their windows etched.
And Amanda just popped up an image of what the equipment looks like. It's changed a lot since we started it, in 2002. And so it's basically all handheld and easy application. So, and it's a local company. InstaEtch is a local company out of Gilbert that we use to purchase these devices. And the Auto Theft Authority itself, sets up, we do it in the state capitol. We've done it in the state capitol parking lot, usually when session's not taking place, and set up, we advertise, promote the event, try to get media out there, and host an event, 4 hours, usually time frame, and etch 30, 40, 50, 60 cars, and send folks on their way, not with just their cars been etched, but additional information about how to secure their vehicles in other ways.
So when you're saying finishes, okay, possible things to profit. Okay, so so people are having this done to their vehicle to prevent. Okay, got it. Okay.
And it's been really, really successful. I mean, people love getting something for free, right? We all know that.
Right.
And they love to talk to law enforcement. Amanda and I go to these events and they really like talking to us, but when, an officer with a gun and a badge, and they want to talk with them and tell their story and find out what's happening in their area, it's just really, it's very impactful. And so we get all of our law enforcement partners, the task force folks, come out and help us because it's pretty labor intensive. Mm-hmm. And so obviously with pandemic, we haven't done any events. So I think Amanda squeezed one in February before things shut down last year.
Correct. Both El Mirage PD and Casa Grande PD, though, who are grant recipients, have been holding VIN etchings since COVID. Being first responders, they got both of their vaccinations right away. Casa Grande just held one over the weekend, and they had on a military base, and they had about 25 between the 2 days, which was really good because it's a very limited group of people who can get on this military base.
Cool.
Okay, very good. And I don't know where you guys started on the meeting, so I'm new. I volunteered to be on this committee, so I'm just trying to get an understanding of what exactly is this committee formed to, what is our mission as far as where we're going with this committee? Other than the 4 things, I assume that, I know you said were a topic. I don't know, like when we talk about watch your car, is it to try and see what we can do to make it bigger or advertise, more? I'm just trying to get an understanding here.
Yeah, I think what my hope today was is to get kind of an outside perspective So we're not just having to rely on ATA staff to really take a look at our overall public awareness outreach strategy, and kind of determine where the value lies in it. Is there value in it? Should we be focusing our efforts heavier in one area and starting to maybe diminish some of our efforts in another area if we determine that there's not value attached to it? We really want to listen to other people's ideas today. We know we're going to have to provide this kind of backstory for everybody with maybe the pros and cons of some of these programs, but we just wanted to hear what people, the subcommittee members thought about outreach efforts, and because we've been doing the same thing for quite a while now, and
yeah,
maybe it's time. Maybe it's time just to look at some of these things and enhance some and walk some back. We're just not sure. So.
Okay. And just so you guys know, so I'm new to the state, right? I started a year ago in January, at the end of January. So I'm totally new to everything about the state and all these different programs. So I'm just kind of coming in from the outside. I worked for private sector for many years for the same company. So if I ask a lot of questions, it's because I really don't know a whole lot about all these different programs and what they do. So just bear with me.
I would say that the VIN etching event it's interesting in that if we were to ask a task force supervisor, and I have asked them direct questions like, how important do you think the VIN etching thing is for law enforcement? They will tell you it's not important. We don't see it. We don't recover vehicle components. It doesn't help us. We don't see enough of them. So I think we kind of had some of that discussion with Watch Your Car as well, where you say, is law enforcement making recoveries based on that program? Well, no, they're not. We can't demonstrate that, but it doesn't mean that the program doesn't have value. And so that's, I guess, is kind of what, that's what the discussion needs to be, because we wouldn't make the decision to say, well, if law enforcement doesn't think that the VIN etching is recovering vehicles, then we're not going to do it. That wouldn't make any sense, because there is a whole other side to that as well.
Is on that VIN etching, is this something that's very visible to someone? Okay, so it is very visible. So it's kind of like the Watch Your Car program, because I had asked about this in one of our last meetings, trying to figure out, is it effective or not? But I think it might have been, Robert, it might have been you that spoke up and talked about it's really more about prevention, right? Because if people are aware that, hey, if they understand what the Watch Your Car program is, it's probably less apt to be stolen, right? And same with the VIN etching, if it's something that's very visible to a thief, then that would also deter them.
Susan, those are all valid points, and I believe it was Mr. Volkmer, but since Mr. Volkmer is so handsome, you can always confuse me with him. And you touch on a good point, both of you, Ms. Trask and Mr. McGuffin. This conversation is organic, clearly, and subparagraph 3, current ATA prevention and outreach initiatives, we're touching on different aspects. We've been discussing VIN etching. We touched a little bit on boothing, and we started to bring up the Watch Your Car. In the aggregate, I think a primary success is just the public awareness aspect, the issue of theft of automobiles being discussed by the public, because that oftentimes, if not always, rolls into other crimes. Thieves stealing cars are not in a vacuum. So all of these programs really at 20,000 feet are social, and it allows the public to speak with law enforcement, to speak with us, and to be more aware. The whole, what's the phrase, and what was the title? The whole go check your car at 9 p.m. and make sure it's locked. We've all forgotten, I think. I've always noticed, just like the garage door. You wake up in the morning and you go, oh, wow, I left my garage door open all night. So all of these issues individually really at a minimum are public awareness. Chief Alanis's point via email, and I don't know if he wanted to read it into the record verbatim, but I thought he made good points with the different age groups as he touched on. What do you think, Ann? Do you want to just paraphrase his email since we're...
Or I can pull it up. Hold on.
Sure.
Yes, Chief. Oh, go ahead, Susan.
Oh, no, go ahead. I thought you were going to be looking. I was going to mention something while you were looking. I was just going to say the bigger success might be the fact that, hey, any car that has been VIN-etched or on the Watch Your Car program has never been stolen, right? So that might be your success story.
Okay, so let's see, Chief Alanis, he isn't able to attend. In regards to the Watch Your Car program, here are his 2 cents. Great program. When I was with Casa Grande PD, we pushed it pretty hard. That was in the early 2000s. The majority, approximately 80%, were senior citizens, with a high percentage of that group being winter visitors. That makes sense. To the best of my recollection, we never pursued a car with that sticker, but we did initiate stops. It was either a family member who didn't know or owner that forgot. I think the program has value, just needs a new marketing approach. Keep attracting the senior population, but also make it attractive to millennials, assuming they have cars. Just kidding. I don't know how to do that. I think soliciting advice from a marketing expert would be a good start. That was his 2 cents.
I think the problem you might run into with the younger group, right, is the hours. Because what's the hours that they're on a, right? That's kind of
1 to 5, 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I know Brad can probably attest to this too, is the younger people with the newer cars with the key fobs are leaving the fob in the vehicle. They'll get out at the convenience store or gas station, leave the fob in the car with it running, or they'll park it in their garage or carport overnight and leave the fob in there, and that's when these newer cars are getting stolen and how they're getting stolen. So I think it's going to be an education thing going forward to, you know, have these people not leave their key fobs in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a whole social media campaign coming up within the next couple of weeks. We've kind of borrowed a term from Colorado. Colorado uses the term puffers, and it really speaks to the exhaust coming out of a tailpipe in cold weather. You know, you can see that exhaust. So Colorado has a lot of thefts because people go out and start their car to warm them up, and somebody comes by and steals them. So they have a whole campaign up there. Well, we have kind of the reverse that happens down here. We have, they're still puffers. They're cars that are running. You don't always see the exhaust coming out because it's hot weather, but people leave them running because of air conditioning. And we hear a lot anecdotally. We can't really prove it because we don't have the stats, but we hear a lot about cars being stolen in convenience store parking lots, and sometimes they have kids in them, sometimes they have pets in them, that type of thing. So there's a variety of reasons why people are leaving the car running, you know, because the child is sleeping or the dog's in the car, they need to keep it cool or whatever. They're all bad reasons, of course, but people are still doing it and people are getting their cars stolen. So those type of topics we can address, we think, you know, pretty easily in a social media campaign. And then it's just all about how big our reach is, you know, how many people we can actually get to, how many followers we have, or how many times we get retweeted or something like that.
And wouldn't most like news channels pick up stories like that? You know, if we were trying to do a public awareness.
Yeah, it's always possible, absolutely. And I think you know, just a stolen car really isn't that sexy. When there's a child in the car, or like we joke all the time, when there's a dog in the car, stand by, because that will get the media attention. So yeah, there's always opportunities with to try and put that out to a local station or something like that, and get into some, because you do have a much broader reach if a one news story will will put it into a lot more people's houses than what our social media does.
Mhm.
And I note a lot of Miss O'Halloran's LinkedIn activity. So where I see the ATA the most are in LinkedIn posts.
Great.
And I had mentioned that this meeting and this conversation is organic. So though we have broken down paragraphs, we've already touched on many of the programs, but we have this Watch Your Car program singled out. I realize, and I agree, Mr. McGuffin, that Miss Armstrong probably has all the institutional knowledge on all of these topics. And I did not know if you wanted to add anything in. I also don't want to, call you out and catch you flat-footed. So what are your thoughts?
Thoughts about the Watch Your Car program?
Sure, we can start there.
As far as its current state, Amanda has really been managing the Watch Your Car program the last several years. So just some background information, the Watch Your Car program, and I believe Jamie touched on that in his slide presentation for the board at the last board meeting, but it was started by a federal grant from the Department of Justice. So we were awarded money to kind of get the Watch Your Car program up and going. And we did that. Originally, the agency was contracting with a private public relations firm, and they were spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. They were doing billboard campaigns. They were doing gas pumper toppers, at gas stations, advertising the Watch Your Car. Well, those all ended up getting stolen, so it wasn't a great thing. But finally, the board said, we're spending all this money. Why don't we've got a small staff, why don't we look at hiring a full-time public information officer? So that's where I came in, and that's when I started with the agency in 2001. And so in addition to, and we were just starting to give out grant money as well. So we had a couple of things really going all in the same direction at the same time. We were doing our own in-house public relations and outreach and giving grant money out to agencies to go and be our Pied Pipers out in the community. And so those two things were happening. Things were, we were almost at 100,000 Watch Your Car enrollments prior to the MVD change, where MVD was no longer physically mailing out the registration renewals, which is how our brochure with an attached application was inserted into all those envelopes. And that's really how our program exploded, which Jamie talks about in the slideshow as well. So, the program has value, like we've all said, it has value. Where we go with it in the future and how we tweak it is really why we're here today, and to kind of get your input. I mean, we've been, the four of us, Art, Frank, Amanda, myself, and Jamie have really been struggling with this, for the last year and a half. So, and then the Watch Your Car program changed with the MVD new system. So that added a whole new kind of approach to us really reaching people in a mass way through MVD again, like we originally did. And so now we're kind of in that middle phase. Do we invest more time and money? Do we rethink the whole thing? So that's where you all come in. And Amanda, if you have anything current to add as far as, Watch Your Car, she deals with the phone calls now. And so she has probably a really good idea of, people's current thought process.
On a whole, we're still receiving calls where people still want to enroll, even though we have the program on pause. We've paused the program because we've gone through our supply of decals. We have 300 left, and with the integration into the AZMVD Now system, we have more than 1,000% increased our enrollment. We had an average annual enrollment of 300. We are now doing about 300 a month when we have it. And unfortunately, we've paused it at least one other time in addition to this. So we've generally hit back on there, making it part of the enrollment process for renewing your registration. And really, we have the potential to to reach that 100,000 if this is still a valid program on there. There are a lot of questions. It's very simple for our customers, but we are currently at a position where it needs to be evaluated from the aspect of we are out of decals. We will need to enlist a new vendor here to reduplicate the decals that we have. One goes in the front, one goes in the back. The front sticker is a square sticker that just explains the program. The back sticker is a highly reflective decal that law enforcement can see at night and really just stands out and signifies it. Part of the Watch Your Car program is a see something, have something process. Officers see the decal, but then they verify the information on MVD. So there is a status code that allows officers to confirm their enrollment. So it is more than just a stop based on a sight of a decal.
And if I could just maybe add a couple things to that, I just kind of, you know, when you talk about the program as we've just heard, you know, it just sounds all positive, and it is, and I really don't have you know, an opinion necessarily strongly one way or the other here. I would just tell you there are the downside to the program. For one is currently we are, you know, pretty small enrollment. When you think about it, and I mentioned this, what, 0.25% of the registered vehicles in the state are actually enrolled in the program. I would agree that even though I can't verify this, that we believe that the demographics of those involved are the people who are probably least likely to have their car stolen, because they are seniors. They probably do park in the garage, and I'm not discounting I love the fact that they're engaged and they want to protect their vehicle in that, but they're not the high risk people for having their car stolen. I think it's maybe a bit of a, you know, peace of mind, a little bit of security that comes to these folks, and there's value in that, and I understand that. The other downside to this is that we don't have an opportunity to count any metrics, because we are totally at the whim of law enforcement agencies to report to us, and we don't have a system in place. It's, coming from that background in law enforcement myself, I know how difficult it is to try and get anybody to report stats outside your agency. It's very, very difficult because law enforcement agencies, like most organizations, create those internal mechanisms, but things that have to go outside, especially things that would be infrequent, like a watch your car stop or a watch your car recovery, I just think even if it happens, the chances of us hearing about it are going to be slim to none. The last thing that I would say is that, Arizona is one of the the last holdouts of the Watch Your Car program. A lot of agencies have gone through this, a lot of states have participated, and they have backed away from it and gone in a different direction. Again, this is not a commercial to get away from it. If the subcommittee thinks, or the board in its whole thinks that we should continue on, then we will go forward and we will try to do all of the things we can to grow the program and to educate law enforcement in that. But we're just at that point now where we kind of need to decide, we're at a fork in the road. So one direction or another. But those are kind of the downside. That's what causes us to think, let's really rethink this before we invest more time and money, because this is not necessarily an easy program to administer either. This takes, Amanda does the heavy lifting on this, and there is definitely an administrative component to this when it's not done through MVD now, because we still offer a paper enrollment form, and there's a lot of people who, need new stickers because they get sunbaked or whatever, and so there's just a constant administrative flow in and out of our office with the Watch Your Car program.
I see that Ms. Trask has her hand raised.
I do. I just have a quick question. You had mentioned that law enforcement, they check before they, act when they see the sticker. What are they looking at to find out if they're in the program or not?
There's a status code that signifies their enrollment. The other portion with that in the AATA system is we are the only one that has their registers that have phone numbers in them. That's part which activates that service code that allows them to look. So when they are stopped, they can contact the registered owner at the numbers provided to sit there and say, hey, we've got your car stopped. Joe's behind your car. No, my car's out front. Can you go check your car? Oh, it's not here. Okay, great. I've got Joe in your car. Do you know Joe?
Got it. Yes. Thank you.
You know, we touched on this on the front end. So the pandemic has really put the brakes on, I believe, Amanda, it's been February 2020, so 14, 15 months. We have this future project discussion. Do we have any hard projects set, or is it all still anything goes and it's up for discussion and speculation?
As far as public outreach, pretty much everything's up to open. The only thing we've been attending to are virtual meetings. I've done a few block watches in between time, and then our social media campaigning, as well as updating our website.
So we've spoken on VIN etching. We've touched on the Watch Your Car program and its history. We saw the slideshow previously. We touched on the boothing. Are there any other activities that have been done before or have been spoken about within the ATA?
We've facilitated making connections for meetings in regards to cargo theft as well, where we worked with travelers to some of the areas were Sarah Vista PD, where they held a conference for cargo theft, and we invited local folks, and our aspect was we helped to make that connection and then provided the flyers. We do a lot of flyer materials. In fact, we did the flyer for Casa Grande's VIN etching event that just held this weekend. So we assist with social media ads and providing anything that we can, and all of our material is shareable. Being a government agency, all that we ask is that you don't remove our logo, just add to it. In addition to that, we are a big player in the public outreach for AATA. We are part of their public subcommittee and help and working on current campaign for July for a national and international aspect.
What was that? What was that committee? What were you just saying? What was that, Amanda, that you had mentioned?
AATA is the International Auto Theft Investigators Association. It is an international organization dedicated to auto theft prevention. And currently the Auto Theft Authority plays a big portion in this public outreach committee, where we're helping to shape and put out public outreach material for there. We'll have a campaign coming up in July.
Got it.
Amanda, if you need if you have any other agencies that want that cargo theft, let me know, because I think sometime after September they should be able to travel again.
Hey, Robert, can we jump back to the Watch Your Car program real quick?
Of course.
So we're all friends, and I'm going to speak kind of frankly and candidly here. What Chief Alanis, what Frank said rang kind of true to me is we're targeting typically the older people with this program. There are two things that struck me as odd, because he said millennials and Gen Zers and everybody else. One, a paper form. You're never going to get a millennial, maybe a late millennial, but you'll never get a young millennial, and you'll certainly never get a Gen Zer to fill out a paper form to get on. And the other thing, and this is where I'm really speaking frankly, you know, I've been in this office for about 5 years now. So now if I see red and blues behind me, I don't get the cold sweats. I don't think of everything I've ever done wrong in my entire life. Prior to that, every time I saw red and lights, I was like, oh my God, you know, what's going to happen to me? You know, I typically am a goody two shoes. I don't do things wrong, but there is a certain cold chill that you get when a law enforcement officer flicks their red and blues behind you. The fact that this program actually invites and permits the red and blues at late at night to stop you, I think is really a disincentive to a lot of people. So I only bring that up to say, if we want this program to continue, I think we really should look at it and say, what do we really want? Do we really want, one, to burden our law enforcement? Because, you know, our director will tell you, Mr. McGuffin will tell you, one of the most dangerous times for a police officer is stopping somebody on the road, especially in the middle of the night, but any time. You know, when I talk with my guys out on the street, they know that this could be the very last time that they ever, you know, take a breath. So it's a burden on law enforcement. I don't think it's something that they particularly would love to do. And I think it actually disincentivizes anybody who may be up between the hours of 1 and 5, because I don't take random drives because I'm bored. I'm not hoping an officer stops me so I can have a chit chat with them. Typically, if I'm in my vehicle, it's because I'm trying to get from point A to point B, and I usually have a timeline. All I'm saying is, as it's constituted right now, I think we're really disincentivizing a lot of people from ever enrolling in the program. I think Susan's right. I think our sale is, hey, we've never had anybody, or it's, you know, if you have this sticker, there's a 0.0001% chance your vehicle is going to be stolen. I think those type of things are very positive. But saying, hey, we're going to let the police stop you randomly, that's not something I think John Q. Public wants to sign up for. Hey, we want you to fill out this paperwork, you know, handwrite it and mail it in. Again, that's not something John and Jane Q. Public are going to sign up for. So I know I'm sort of repeating myself, but just I think if we want to push this program, I think we really need to rethink how we market it, how we get it out there, and then specifically, who do we really want to sign up? You know, when Jamie did his presentation, if you guys drive these vehicles, I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but they're pretty much junkers and clunkers that seem to be getting stolen. They seem to be later model pickup trucks and Camrys and those type of things. Again, it's the wealthy people, the people that have a real great relationship with law enforcement, oftentimes aren't driving those vehicles. It tends to be those people that may have a more contentious relationship with law enforcement. They may be on the lower socioeconomic spectrum. So I think we need to really think about trying to get to that target population. And that's sort of my 2 cents on it.
Well, and I think you made a good point too. When you were talking earlier, you had mentioned the people that are signing up are the ones that are less likely to have their cars stolen anyway, right? So I think that also should help us think about the program. Is it really effective? Because I agree. I don't think the younger ones are going to sign up because of their hours that they like to be out and they go randomly. And, you know, I can't imagine too many young people wanting to sign up for the program.
Right. One thing about the paper form, if we could go completely electronic with the MVD Now system, we would do that and do away with the paper form completely. I think, Amanda, the reason we do that is because we have seniors who do not have that familiarity with technology, and so they want the paper form. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's why we still offer it, and that's who the demographic is that is actually utilizing it. But with the comments made, I couldn't agree more. I don't think the Watch Your Car program is not going to grab hold of those younger drivers, that type of thing. I guess what I've struggled with, the reason why I have not moved to get rid of the Watch Your Car program, and I've mentioned this before, is that we have 17,000 people that care about auto theft. They care about not having their car stolen, whether they're good potential victims or not, which I don't think they are. They still care enough about it to do that overt action of signing up and putting the decal on the window and making the public declaration that you can stop me if you ever stop this vehicle, if you ever see it out, because there's a good chance I won't be driving it between 1 and 5. It'll be somebody else who isn't supposed to be. We take the risk, run the risk of disenfranchising that population of people, which is when you look at like our followers on social media, and that we don't have 17,000 people that are following us. I wish we did, but the one place we do have 17,000 people is in the Watch Your Car program. So to send a message that we don't see value in the program, so we're out. I'm not comfortable with that either. So that's why with all of these arguments that you could argue this so well on all sides. That's why it's such a difficult decision to make on where the program should go, I believe.
I'd like to go ahead and add we're missing a portion of the Watch Your Car program. It is not only between the hours of 1 and 5, but it's any time within an hour of the international border. So if a car goes south towards the border, international border, they can be stopped at any time, whether it's 9 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. That is a part of the program as well. In addition to what Jamie said, is we do have interest on anybody who's ever had their car stolen. Their priorities change, and sometimes they are interested. I can tell you from my experience in phone calls, generally when I receive a request to be removed from the program, it's either they've changed their working hours, where they are working in the morning, or they've actually gotten rid of the car. I very rarely receive any requests for people once they've enrolled to be unenrolled from the program, unless they've sold the car to somebody else and they're transferring ownership. So once somebody is enrolled in their car, they were enrolled in that program until they've decided to no longer have that car. And some of that is in our database. We've had cars that have literally been in the program since they've received that car 20 years ago, 15 years ago. We've had some really old cars in there.
What happens with people who don't tell you they sold their car?
It's set up that if they've made any changes within the MVD system, that they automatically fall out.
Okay.
This unfortunately also includes if they've decided to put their vehicle in a trust name, they fall out of the program. So there's a communication gap there that we need to repair. But oftentimes when they call us in, that is something we check and let them know.
I guess my suggestion wasn't that we disband the program. I think it's that we revamp the program, perhaps eliminate the law enforcement stopping from 1 to 5. I actually like the border, and Amanda, I didn't know that was part of it. I think that's a very valuable tool, because I can tell you, Pinal County, a lot of the vehicles that we get stolen, a lot of them are coming down 10 heading towards the border. Obviously, I'm not an hour from the border, but I think that's a really, big selling point for a lot of people that are nervous about that. For me, it's that 1 to 5, invite law enforcement to stop you. Again, I was raised that nothing good happens after midnight. Like if you're out at midnight, you're getting in trouble. So if I'm out at 1 to 5, I certainly don't want to be stopped. And that's coming from a goody two shoes. So when I was talking about tweaking the program, I didn't mean necessarily eliminate it. I meant what do we really want to do, and what do our law enforcement partners want to do? I'd be interested, unfortunately Frank's not with us, but to ask some of our cops, hey, what would you like? What would you want to see out of this program? And I think those stickers are great. I like the stickers. I like that they're reflective. The other thing I think we should think about doing is trying to get a lot of our government vehicles to have them put on there. Even though nobody's ever going to steal a G plate, I think just seeing them makes it a lot more commonplace and makes people think about it. And it's frankly free and easy advertising, because how hard is it for the government agency to slap that sticker on?
Yeah. What did you say the border, how close to the border before it becomes a concern?
1 mile.
Yeah, so it's not an hour, it's a mile.
Maybe we should expand that a little bit. Sorry, Susan.
No, my apologies. I was just going to say I didn't realize that either. Which I agree with you wholeheartedly on both counts, right? I think that is a really big benefit. And I also agree the 1 to 5 stop, that would keep me from wanting to be in the program. Because you just never know, right? There are times where I have to get up really early and go to the airport, and I don't want to think about it.
As the person who does the boothing, and when we explain this, we definitely answer questions on that. A lot of people do. Some people choose not to. But some of the things we sit there and explain is I tell them, look, there's always an excuse or a reason for you to be up between that time between 1 and 5. It's important to know that this is not a DUI program. This is a theft prevention program. So if you are stopped, they're just looking to verify that the person driving is you or somebody you've authorized to drive the car. The goal behind it is to get your car back to you before you even know it's stolen. Because the chances are, if it is stolen between 1 and 5, you're not going to notice your vehicle is gone until you go to work, whenever that should be. Some of the other things we do, I sit there and I just empathize with them. I'm a mom. Kids get sick and it's never at a convenient point. So it's not saying you can't drive between 1 and 5. It's just saying that if you don't drive 95% of the time, you might want to consider this program.
Right. And I think too, though, while, I agree that maybe it might not be for, DUI or anything like that. But if you're in a hurry and trying to get to the airport, the last thing you want to do is get stopped and delayed, right?
Correct. This is something that that we do go ahead and communicate with there. And we always tell people it may not be the program for you. And we follow it up with, just remember to layer your protection. Make sure you're using a club, you're locking your doors, parking in a safe one. So, I mean, there are different things. This is just one tool and one level of means that we use to communicate with the public.
Amanda, the one other thing that you said.
So maybe is that one? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just laughing, thinking though, if I were driving my wife's car and I were coming back from the casino or something at 2 a.m. and I got stopped and my wife got called or my kids woke up, there would be such hell to pay when I got home that prospect absolutely terrifies me. And to Susan's point, I wouldn't put that sticker on just because that is not worth the risk to me. I'd rather have my car stolen than have to deal with that fallout.
Correct. But in the same light, we've had some parents who have jumped at the opportunity to put this on their car for their teens. This was an imposed curfew on that particular car. You can get stopped, and if I get a phone call because you were out when you weren't supposed to be, you know, so I mean, for every disadvantage, there are advantages and vice versa.
But if you're really trying to increase your membership, that's what we need to think about, right? I think, because I agree, I think the international border is a huge one. I don't know if there's anything we can do with the, you know, the 1 to 5 thing, because I think Kent, you had made the point, you know, officers really don't want to, they're, you know, it's something that they really don't want to do either. So we're adding a burden to the officers, and, you know, maybe it's just time to revamp the program.
What I can tell you is that the majority of the people who know officers, law enforcement, it's not something that's currently actively being trained. Only just recently we received information or a request for updated information from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, just because it was part of their policies and they had somebody reviewing it. But more often than not, we don't really receive or hear any feedback on that. So I don't know, and I can't provide any stats or information that this is actually even actively being looked at.
Yeah, and I would just add that there's no requirement for law enforcement to make a stop. So if they see one of these stickers at 3 a.m, they could notice it and go the other direction. And there's no agency that says you must stop that. No requirement anywhere. When you're at 3 a.m, a lot of times you see a car that you might want to stop, and you can't find a reason to stop it. So there might be an incentive for police officers to see that sticker. It gives them a reason to make that traffic stop, a legitimate reason, you know, absent reasonable suspicion to make the stop. So, but I would be a little bit concerned if we started to talk about removing the you know, the red and blue part of that. I agree, it's not an incentive for a lot of people, and I think, you know, that's part of the program. It's not going to appeal to a wide variety of people. It's not going to appeal to, but that is the teeth of the program. That is stopping that car before it gets somewhere. You know, it's going to be on its way to, you know, potentially the border. It's going to be on its way to a chop shop, or to be concealed and hidden away somewhere until, you know, whatever the case may be, or maybe just abandoned and burned in the desert. But if we don't have the ability for law enforcement to make that traffic stop when they see that sticker during that time frame, I think we kind of gut the intent of the program. So that's the downside of that.
Is there a way for people to have like a perimeter of, hey, if you see my vehicle outside of this area kind of thing? You know, because people generally have a pattern, right? So then maybe between those hours, and I don't know how effective that is to monitor or even try and, you know, figure out how you would know. But, you know, maybe if it's outside of Phoenix, or
that would fall in line with additional security installed on their vehicle. Generally, that's considered geofencing. Products like LoJack will have it that if the car moves within a certain amount of, I believe that in this case is feet. So there's a level of technology, and that's usually a service plan that they can install aftermarket or at the time that they purchase a newer vehicle. But to do it on a holistic law enforcement side, you're asking for more connection on a vehicle, and it's not something that we could feasibly promote other than just make them aware of that technology is available.
Yeah, MVD has been a great partner for that, but I don't think they would want to. I don't think they have the capability of that type of technology for fencing, anything like that.
Definitely don't. No, but as we think about some of these programs and, you know, advertising and things like that, there's a possibility maybe, because we have a substantially large viewership on our website even, you know, maybe we could do a flash promotion of some sort too. That's certainly something that we could think about.
I think one of the, and this is something we've talked about, but we've really never moved forward on, but we always talk about followers on social media. Well, we have, you know, that pool of people generally all have email addresses and things like that. We need to engage them more with just not to overload them, but just every once in a while type of communication. And that's something that we haven't done. There's a whole pool of people there that we can engage with on a more regular basis with tips and, you know, trends and things like that. But
it appears that we are not going to have full resolution on the issue of the Watch Your Car program, though this subcommittee meeting today, I think, really proved beneficial because we were able to discuss quite a bit. It appears there is value, and I think Mr. McGuffin's point of, well, those that are currently engaged in it should be able to continue to be engaged in it, and it is a big number in and of itself, 17,000. But I agree with many of the points Mr. Volkmer and Ms. Trask asserted. I'm not a participant, and we touched on the very reasons. I mean, I've had the fun luxury of trying to get to Sky Harbor by 3 a.m. on a Saturday night to take the 5 a.m. to O'Hare flight out Sunday morning for work, of course. I absolutely, as I think we all do, when we have those very annoying business travel opportunities, we cut the timing to the bone. So I would not want to be pulled over for even 10 minutes. Yes, I agree. I think speaking boothing in general and working in the whole VIN etching activity, it still proves beneficial. My original aggregate point of any of these public outreach activities allow for discussion and awareness as to auto theft, which is still a problem in Arizona. I think we need to think more on what to do about the Watch Your Car program. Everyone involved on this call has made positive points and negative points, but I'm going to open it up to, I'm going to open it up to the subcommittee as to additional thoughts beyond what I just stated. Going once. We spoke very organically today and non-linearly, but I think we touched on a lot of valid points. Mr. McGuffin, anything to add? Ms. Armstrong, we effectively covered everything on our agenda aside from the call to the public.
Well, I think I would say that, and I mentioned this kind of in my opening comments. You know, when we talk about placing, it's generally Amanda in a booth, and most frequently, I think it's been in areas down south. They've been very happy to have her come down, like to Sierra Vista and places like that. But you know, for her to come to the office and pick up her supplies and then drive to Sierra Vista and sit in a booth, even if the sitting in the booth is an hour or two, there is a that is definitely a full day right there. And then on occasion, I believe she has stayed the night down there. So it's an overnight thing. With the consolidation and with her additional duties, those type of things, I can almost assure you we're not going to be able to staff those. Amanda doesn't have the time to do those things. She might be able to do those things maybe in the valley. But even at that, that's at minimum a half a day and probably more than that. So there's just a lot of, peripheral activity that goes along with that. To get to the point where you can actually sit in a booth and pass things out, it takes a lot of before and after action. So with the other things that she's doing for DiFi now, I know we're going to have to limit her involvement with that. One of the things that we have done over the last couple weeks, I guess even, I think it's happened on 2 occasions where agencies have asked us for that type of support, and we have hopefully politely declined, but we have sent them care packages. And so we put all of that, all the trinkets and pamphlets and things like that in a box, and we ship it up to them, and they do that booth opportunity themselves. Probably not to the level that certainly that Amanda could do it, but it's kind of any port in a storm at that point. So just because we have to change how we're doing business because of the requirements that she now faces. But that's one of the ways that I guess, as I tell you that, because that's one of the ways that we're evolving. Maybe we can't be there in person, but it doesn't mean that we can't support you in a different way.
Yes, Mr. Volkmer.
Robert, one thing that Amanda said, and I don't think anybody spent much time on it, is she said, I think that they're out of decals, for example, the Watch Your Car program, and that we need to order more decals. I was wondering if it'd be possible for that June 18th, if we could get an idea of what that cost is, because the full board's going to have to end up making a call. If it's $5,000 or $10,000, the board may be happy, but is there money available? But if it's $25,000, the board may say, yeah, that's just financially infeasible. So I would love to be able to have, I guess, you as our subcommittee chair be able to report to the full board, or Amanda directly, or Mr. McGuffin. I don't care who, but just what that cost is, so we can actually sort of put dollars to results.
Yeah, that's a fantastic agenda item. Not personally, obviously, but we have purchased those stickers previously, so I imagine we can get to that number. Ms. Armstrong, Ms. O'Halloran?
Yes, that's something we can explore.
Thank you.
We have that data. It's old now. We would definitely need to go back to the vendor, but we had it broken down in, the cost of the decals becomes significantly less when you order in higher volumes. And so we had it broken down, I believe, in like 10,000 increments or something like that. And but it is a fairly decent expense. Probably the bigger expense would be as if we contract with a mailing service. And that's something that ADOA is kind of, and Amanda, you may know the most current on this. The last I heard was that ADOA was kind of dipping their toe into this idea about, hey, we can do this mailing for you. We can fold and stuff the envelope and then get it sent out. You just provide us the information on where it goes. There's a cost to that service, of course, but I think it's probably money well spent, because that is the mailing part of that. The stuffing is all things that Amanda would not have to do, or any other staff. So we're very interested in that, but I'm not sure ADOA is ready to launch on that yet. Amanda, if there's something more on that, please tell us.
Correct. And initially, before ADOA had mentioned that they were looking to dip their toe into mailing services, we had explored an option with R&R Donley, which we can refresh that. Basically, what would happen is we would extract a report from our AZ MVD DAO for our new enrollments. And we would send that to them, and they would do the processing, which is basically just mailing out the stickers and the decals with the information, and then service all the processing needs for us. As I mentioned before, with the inclusion of AZ MVD now, our annual enrollment went from 300 a year to 300 in a month. And that roughly takes me about half a day going in half a day, going in once a month to do this. And enlisting the services of a mailing service would have a more consistent process. It would be on theirs when they chose to send them out, but on a more frequent basis than having customers say, hey, I sent my application in 3 months ago. Have you received it yet? So be a little bit more consistency.
Is that steadily kind of the trend? 300 a month is what we're getting for that?
Since turning on the AZMVD now, yes.
Okay.
All good points. I think this subcommittee meeting proved beneficial again for just hashing out really the many question marks moving forward. Do any subcommittee members want to bring up any additional points that we have not touched on?
I would just like to say that bin etching, I have no idea. I think if we do more public outreach on that, I think that would go over really well.
I agree. It seems like that is it appears to be one of the popular activities based on Ms. Armstrong's assertions.
I can tell you from experience, our VIN etching events are very well attended. And when I say well attended, we're looking at our highest numbers. We had about 45 cars in one day, and it's in about a 4-hour span. The whole process takes about 7 minutes to complete a car, but we are outside touching windows. So that excludes about 3 or 4 months in the higher times when temperatures are a little hot. Though our friends at Eloy are really proactive and they have found a shady spot, which invites that, or our more external ones outside of the city in cooler climates. We'll do VIN etching events that allow us to expand that season. That's also a really good promoter for if we choose with the Watch Your Car, where we hand that information out. Generally in the process, while they're signing the information, we hand them a little goodie bag of our promotional items, including a brochure for the Watch Your Car or whatever information we have at that time.
And how do you guys notify the public when you have those events?
Social media. Again, we provide the ads for there. We try to do a themed ad, Watch Your Car, for the rest of the year that we use and share with our local law enforcement. We'll switch out to their logo of choice. We give them the information, both the social media ads as well as a flyer for them to distribute out. Law enforcement has a tremendous amount of larger following than we do, so it tends to go a little bit more. In our smaller communities, it goes like wildfire, because once somebody knows about it, you start seeing these flyers in your local breakfast haunts or maybe in the local paper, in addition to social media. We also broadcast these on our website, on our calendar of events. And we do have people who call and have been calling, asking for when the next event is.
Okay.
We also send out a press release, usually a week, 10 days out, to try to get, even the small little Williams Pioneer newspaper, try to get some traction there. And those are usually, it's a good news, a feel good story. And once they come out, that sometimes gets the public, they see it on the news and they end up coming out to the event while we're still there. So, and our law enforcement partners are good about, putting info out to their PIOs to promote the event.
A majority of these events are very highly visible. We always recommend that they are in an area that gets a lot of traffic. So sometimes we'll get somebody who maybe not heard of it, just sees a whole bunch of people standing around and asking what's going on. In some events, like in Douglas, we've combined them with a car seat check, or Douglas and Nogales, a car seat check, or a shred-a-thon. So sometimes they can be combined in a municipality with other events that'll go ahead and elicit and get more people and more traction as well.
Very good points, everyone. I'll just add, in regard to the VIN etching, and this is really more just observational. Logistically, I haven't thought on it, but pre-pandemic, right there at the Home Depot and the McDonald's in Scottsdale, right by the freeway, every Saturday starting at say 3 and running to say 9 or 9:30. There's the public car show. I don't know if any of y'all have gone out to that location. It fills the entire parking lot. So if you think a Home Depot parking lot, it's just got rows and rows of private owners that just line up all their cars and motorcycles of various categories. I think the first time I went out there was maybe 1998. And so pre-pandemic, it was a regular Saturday evening. I think they call it the cruise-in. Salt River Police Department polices the parking lot. So I know they have jurisdiction at least out that far. They're in uniform. Just a thought, I'd be curious if this apparatus for VIN etching went and set up a tent. The crowd seems to be consistent with being all over that activity, because you have, you know, the classic Mustangs all the way through to Ferraris and everything else.
It is a double-edged sword with classic cars. Just to be upfront, classic cars, they do not like to alter anything on there, even though it doesn't devalue it. But then you have others who are willing to, and they don't want anything stolen on that car and replaced. What it is a good promoter and a good boosting opportunity when you're at classic cars for the other programs or for their personal ride that they are more willing to. But actually going up to them, it is a very mobile service. The machine was designed that one person could do it, though we promote events which have about 7 to 8 volunteers. Classic cars are if and because we are doing acid etching, it is permanent. So if we mess up anything, this is messed up on their classic car. It is a very rare and low probability. We do a lot of training on this, but it is a lot of pressure on that. They are signing a consent form that says they understand that this is permanent process on their vehicle.
Good to know. And I remember the exits. So we're talking the Indian Bend exit. And so to the west of the freeway is a Home Depot and a Guitar Center across the street, and McDonald's and so forth. The entire parking lot gets filled every Saturday evening. Pre-pandemic, I haven't been out there during the pandemic.
The classic car community, though, is a really good community to speak to. They like hearing about cars. They like hearing about auto theft. They like hearing about prevention. One of the big things we did with the classic car group is I had the opportunity a couple years ago to speak to the National Corvette Society at the regional conference, and we spoke about making good purchases of classic cars, which is something of interest to them. That's another aspect of avenue of theft prevention, is not purchasing a stolen car. So, and that is something that they had a lot of interest in.
Thank you very, very much. We can move to the call to the public. I don't know how much of a public we have on this call, so any public gallery comments? Going once? Gone? Board members, anything else to add that we haven't otherwise covered? That being stated, I think this is a good point to adjourn this meeting, and I think it was productive in posting all the question marks that we were able to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
guess it's a good time to call it. Have a good rest of your day and weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.